What up, fam? I am Dr. De Luna, and you are listening to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. Today we have back on Damon, my favorite rep from CellCore, and today we're talking all about patient success stories because I have had unbelievable shifts in my patients by using these products. He has some incredible stories too, so I hope that this episode inspires you and also gives you a reason to try them because trust me, you need to. Thanks for being here. Welcome back, Damon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I was going to say the first guest that we've had on twice. Technically, you're the second, but it's my honor to welcome you back.
Oh my gosh, I feel honored. I really do. But
wonderful.
Glad to be here.
Yes.
You're one of my favorite doctors on the internet. It's
and
so
in person.
Fun. Oh my gosh. You're for those that are listening that don't know you in person, you are a joy to be around and just so fun. So this is we're two talkers, obviously, so we get along quite nicely.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I'm very thankful to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So happy you came back. You know, the first time you were just in our first little studio space. Now you're in the jungle.
Where mold grows.
Where mold grows in the jungle. We're going to talk all about it. There's no mold in here.
No.
There's no mold in here. There better not be fucking mold in here. Yep. But there's not mold. But if there was, we could fix it.
Yeah, we can fix it. We have a solution.
We have a solution. And today, my friend, last episode, we just talked a lot about why we're obsessed with CellCore, how it works, different intricacies of that process. But today, I thought that we could just share some epic patient success stories.
Okay. We can talk about that for sure.
Beautiful.
I'm sure you have a few. You see a lot of patients.
I have quite a few. And, I could start us off and see where that takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in a fortunate position. I'm a rep, right? So
yes,
I have tons of practitioners and I always hear I actually have a really crazy one, a couple crazy ones. So we'll get into that.
But I love crazy stories. Yeah. I do. And I was actually giggling to myself this morning as I was texting my friend, because when I first even found CellCore, I was reading her new patient paperwork and she was writing to me, I have this, I have that, I've been exposed to heavy metals, I have parasites. And I'm like, this chick is fucking crazy. She's crazy. There's no way that she has all those things. Little did I know that she did. She was right. And it opened my eyes to parasites. And I think that so many people, probably even listening to this podcast, don't believe that parasites are in their body, in their environment, influencing their health, influencing things like allergies, eczema, headaches, rashes, gut symptoms, insomnia. The list goes on and on and on. So maybe we start with parasite stories.
Well, our founder, they call him is Dr. Todd Watts. One of our founders, Jay Davidson is the other one. But Dr. Todd Watts, they call him the parasite doctor, right? Because he did a lot of studying. He really went down those rabbit holes.
And he's a nerd. People need to know this. He's a nerd. He's not just being like, I think people have parasites.
Yeah, he's brilliant, really brilliant. But he says, I have a guaranteed parasite test. You know how you do it? Do you remember this one?
The pulse.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Check right here. Do you have a pulse? You have parasites.
Yes.
And now there's this crazy thing going around where people are talking about, practitioners are like, you don't want to kill parasites, all the parasites. Have you heard that whole new thing going around?
I have. And honestly, I was just at a medical conference in which she was speaking specifically to Mercator parasites, which is a specific type of worm. And essentially she uses them for certain types of autoimmune conditions or chronic gut conditions. And the way that I think that piece works is for certain people that have Th1 dominant autoimmune conditions. Basically, Th2, arm of the immune system, we get nerdy, is where the body is either fighting allergies or parasites. So for someone that is in a Th1 dominant state, inducing yourself with some parasitos might help those symptoms. And the intention is that you don't get filled to the brim with parasites, so then where those are causing symptoms. So outside of that clinical little nugget, I'm not too familiar with why people are friends with these wormies.
Well, I can tell you where kind of the studies come from.
Tell me.
There's a study that was done on, and you can look this up in PubMed, on ducks, and they land in these dirty ponds.
They're filthy
ponds. Yeah. They're full of heavy metals and other things. So they found when they killed off parasites in ducks, their heavy metal levels went up. Because parasites are sponges, as we know, for everything from viruses to heavy metals to environmental toxins, and they excrete them into your body. So
Yes.
this is what makes you sick. So, but it is a parasite, right? That,
Yeah.
One that steals from another one's table. Isn't that what parasite means?
Yes.
So
they're not commensal. They're not helping us.
No.
No.
They're not commensal bacteria, right?
Yeah.
They're literally parasites. So our theory is you're never going to get rid of all of them, but your immune system, once it's up, is going to take care of that part of it. And then you can do cleanses every so often, depending on where you're at in your life. I mean, if you're on a farm, probably every 3 months.
Yeah.
If you're, I don't know where you, maybe on the moon, you would only have to do it once every 10 years.
They probably have parasites up there. Who knows? And, I could see that. And I don't think it's realistic for us to think that we're ever going to be these perfect specimens in which we are, void of any toxin. So I think that, there's a reason why they like certain hosts, and it's usually because they're very toxic. And I know this firsthand. I remember, and I don't know if I shared this on the first podcast or in my other parasite episodes, because I've talked a lot about parasites on this podcast, that I was passing parasites with every full moon for a fucking year.
Yeah.
And I was devastated. I was honestly devastated. It was disturbing to me. Every full moon, I'm like, okay, we're not going to have any this time. I'm going to feel great. Like nothing's going to happen. And every full moon, I was still passing out snakes. And it was disturbing to me. And it wasn't until I reached out to Dr. Jess, who a lot of people know Dr. Jess. She said to me, you either have breast implants, I do not, or you have a very high toxic load and that you're likely living in mold. And little did I know I was living in mold then. And for me, I'm very health conscious. I practice what I preach. I sweat. I eat well. I don't have issues with drainage. I support my drainage pathways. So I don't think I realized, because I wasn't having those big parasite symptoms, and they were eating the mold. So in a lot of ways, they were helping me in that situation. They had a really solid food supply. Right.
Well, I mean, we see it all the time. And this is, I guess, a good testimony that we could talk about. Like I see it with patients where, they'll go through a year on CellCore, and you're like, if you go through the protocol, as you know, you're on anti-parasitics, basically. You're on our parasite products. You're supposed to kind of use the full moon cleanse, what we call it, or the parasite cleanse at the end, to kind of gauge where you're at. And some people will pass a few in the beginning, and then nothing, and then all of a sudden, they're a year into it, and they're like, why am I passing like you? Why am I passing so many? And what we say, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. You're getting better and better. So one of the theories I heard, which makes sense, is the body can kind of wall off areas that are injured. Say in like cancer or something like that. The body's like, wall this off, don't let it spread. And that's where these little critters can hide. So as the body heals and it starts to pull back down those walls, then the products can get in there and do damage.
Yes. And, the biofilms and the secret places that they hide. And, it almost sounds like I'm telling like a scary campfire story, but they can hide in your organs. They can be in the drainage of your gallbladder. They can be in your bladder. They can be in your brain. They could be in your sinuses. So, it's unlikely that you're just going to get them all at once. And, I could truly tell beautiful tales of where I have found parasites in my body and what they have come out of. But I suppose that I will shift just slightly to talk about some of my patients because, for me, I kind of mentioned that I hadn't really, because I help people with this all the time. So I didn't think that I had such a high parasitic load, even though I was passing them all the time, because typically in my patients, when someone tells me that they have allergies that are terrible, maybe they didn't have them their whole life though, but now they have terrible allergies. They didn't just move here, or they have eczema.
Skin issues. Yeah.
Skin issues.
Classic.
I love that, but I love clearing skin issues with parasite cleansing. And I have a couple incredible stories in which one female came to me. She had had eczema for about 10 years and she did have bouts in childhood. And of course, we can absolutely get parasites any time of our life. Kids are crawling on the ground. They're eating questionable things. They're doing all the things that you could do to get a parasite, but it went away for a little bit. And then in her adulthood, it came back with vengeance, and it was red, it was itchy, it was raw. And really all that we did with her was do some drainage, and we parasite cleansed her for 3 full moons in a row. I hadn't heard from her. I reached out. I'm like, hey, just wondering how you're doing. And she's like, oh, I didn't feel the need to come back because my skin is fully clear. The eczema is fully gone. And this is something that she had gone to, dermatologist for, conventional doctors for, and she was just getting steroid creams, and that doesn't solve the problem. And that's what I love about CellCore. It's root cause.
Yeah. You're cleaning up the train.
Yeah.
Why the critters like to stay in there, and then they get nervous, and then we hit them with the killers.
We hit them with the killers.
So one of my practitioners, she had this proper older lady with battling cancer, British. So you can imagine the how she spoke, but she would come in and she's like, okay, I guess, I'll listen to you. Like I'm going through an allopathic doctor and, considering chemotherapy and all that. And so she starts coming to this practitioner and going, okay, I'm seeing stuff come out. And she goes, this is very fascinating. So I'm counting them. And so she put up a board in her bathroom.
I love this woman.
And she would pick through what she could see in her British accent. I'm like,
holy moly.
And she's picking through. And the practitioners, she's like, this lady, I would never expect her to tell me this. But she's like, okay, I'm up to 235. I'm up to 400. Now she's like, last I heard, it was like over 500. Meanwhile, she's going back to her doctor and they're like, we don't understand. Some of these tumors have shrunk and they're shrinking and we don't know what's causing it. And she's like, of course she knows. She's like, there's that link that you're starting to see in the PubMed studies that they're finally acknowledging about links to cancer and parasites. So it's pretty fascinating. But she's one of those practitioners. She's like, everyone goes on the longest CellCore protocol, which are comprehensive, which is 9+ months. I always say plus because for some people it's 1.5 years, 2 years. But it's a lot for some people, right? Yeah. So that can be a little much, but I think everyone, if you don't know what to do, go on the longer protocol. You're going to come out on the other end. Like myself, you're not supposed to feel better as you get older, but I've never felt better. Yeah. And I think that's really kind of a cool success story. Is like, I feel better than I did in my early 30s. Now I'm in my late 40s, right? So it's like, that's not supposed to happen. I'm not supposed to get stronger. I'm not supposed to have no brain fog. I'm not supposed to have more energy. That doesn't happen. You're supposed to go downhill, you think, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of depression, people are depressed not because they're just depressed people. They're full of toxins. Their bodies feel terrible. Their minds are clogged. They need help. So that's where I think really doing a detox, getting those toxins out of you, it clears up the mind, and suddenly you're like a new lease on life, right? And you've probably seen that quite a bit, I'm sure, too. Yeah. I love that you went there, just because I talk a lot about depression and mental health on this podcast. And to me, depression, of course, grief happens. Yes. Hard things happen. That's very different to me than feeling like you're living in a dark cloud all the time and not understanding why. Yeah. And for me, a lot of the times that comes down to things like heavy metal exposure, mold exposure, just toxic load. And when you're saying, I'm not supposed to feel better as I get older, it's not typical, because most people, their toxic load just gets higher and higher versus doing things to detox and help their body. And, I think that for a lot of people, lifestyle changes are really hard, but then when you make them, you feel the shift. But then also when using products that are actually actively binding and clearing toxins. And that's something that I've also seen phenomenal results in my practice. For anyone that I'm suspecting that they have a high toxic load, I test them and I have them sweat. I have them make sure that they're pooping. I do all of that foundational stuff, but then also the binders on CellCore, I've seen the numbers drastically shift in just total toxic burden, total toxic load. And then as a result, almost every symptom that they come to me for gets better. It's one of my favorite things when someone's like, oh yeah, I forgot I was exhausted. I haven't felt that in so long. That happens a lot with me with chronic viral infections. And I love the Virad binder for that, because it's something that, a lot of different binders, you get a lot of die off, or, different antimicrobials. People can get Herx reactions or just feel really sick. But the binder, in that there's some olive leaf, and it's also just the fulvic and humic acid that's binding and clearing the viruses. And, viruses are kind of like little spaceships. It's hard for your immune system to find them. They're really weird. So that's another little just generalized success story that I see with both the toxic load getting significantly better, and then when something like chronic fatigue is happening from whether it's toxins or a viral load, completely shifting that. Yeah, it's just taking that step in the right direction. You don't have to drastically change your lifestyle if you're not ready for it. And that's what I love. Some practitioners I know that, or like get a dog, it's just so you're exercising. That's one thing you can do. We love dogs. We do love dogs. But along those lines, like, that's why we call the biotoxin binder the new multivitamin. When I was a kid, everyone took their multivitamin and they were all junk.
Yeah, Flintstones vitamin, a little chewy.
Yeah. So that was the kind of, everyone took your multivitamin, right? Well, the new multivitamin is now the biotoxin binder. And we say binder as, if your audience doesn't know.
Yeah, please.
The binder, normally like charcoal, bentonite clay, a lot of those, you're not supposed to take them with food, right? Because they grab onto everything. But our binders are different. They do help you absorb nutrients from your food and other supplements. So you can actually take them with food and other supplements. You don't have to worry about any of that. And so it is a product that I'll be on for life. There's a few products.
Yeah.
Like if that's all you can do is one product, that's where you start, like a biotoxin binder, or we have a product called Tudka that helps flush bile from the body. So it's, there are steps you can take just to kind of start that. And then as you feel better, then you're like motivated. Let's do more. Let's change the diet. Let's, cut out sugar maybe, or only drink 6 nights a week instead of 7. Whatever.
There we go.
So you got to start somewhere, right? So, and I've one of the success stories I wanted to tell you about. One of the reps, like, oh my gosh, you have to see this. This is the craziest success story I've heard from. So it was a guy that barely could get out of bed. He was eating McDonald's or fast food literally every day. He was drinking a 6-pack of beer every day, and he smoked like a pack and a half a week, or 2 packs a week. So the practitioner's like, I'm going to put you on this protocol. He's like, well, I can't change all that. And she's like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a protocol, the CellCore protocol, but all we want you to do is change your beer to wine. Oh. Okay, so bottle of wine tonight. Organic, preferably, right? Yeah. Let's go fast food on the weekends when you're off work, but during the week, make yourself some meals. Let's do that. And can we get your smoking down to maybe 4 or 5 cigarettes a day? He's like, okay, I could do that. His numbers in that 6 months changed drastically. He was shocked. He felt way better. And he's like, there's something to this. Now, obviously, that's not ideal. You don't want someone going along those lines forever, because you're binding toxins, but you're putting them in almost as fast as you're binding them, right? So, but that's kind of cool that you can see change just by making little steps. You don't need this drastic change right away, because it's overwhelming for some people. Yeah,
it is overwhelming, and they have to be ready. Yeah. And, most people don't have an issue with swallowing a pill every day, or a couple pills every day. Yeah. But the lifestyle changes I do find are the hardest. Yeah. So I love that. I love that story.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's really motivating to hear those. Like that same practitioner's like, well, you're mopping the floor with dirty boots on, but at least you're mopping the floor.
There we go. There we go. It is a start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. So I suppose most of my stories have to do with either toxin load, chronic viral infections, which honestly, the conventional world doesn't have many options for chronic viral infections at all. If you get even the flu, you're not given anything to help you in that process. And, we're not going to say the word of the virus that everyone's terrified of, but there's no treatment for that, right? However, CellCore has amazing strategies for that. And it's whether it's, upregulating the immune system or actually physically binding the viruses, because there's no medication that can do that can bind a virus and clear it from your body. So I work with a lot of chronic mono. And chronic mono can really depress your immune system in a way that other stealthy infections come out to play and whatnot. And I have found that using the CellCore products in not only just getting the toxic load down so that the immune system can function well, but then also actually being able to target and clear those viruses has been amazing. And some people don't even realize that they have chronic mono, and their doctor thinks I'm crazy for wanting to test them for chronic mono, because they're like, yeah, of course the antibodies are going to come back positive because you had mono when you were in 8th grade and you had to stay home from school for 3 months. But, viruses can stay present in the body because viruses, they actually dock onto our cells. They insert their DNA into our own cells. The little protein coat that looks like a spaceship disintegrates and goes away. And that DNA integrates in our nucleus so that the nucleus then makes more viruses. So basically, our body has to be able to see the weird cells. It has to be able to identify them versus a bacteria. It's floating around the bloodstream. It's easier for the immune system to see, but it has to be able to see those cells, be like, something's up here, and be able to kill them and clear it out. And that you need a very strong immune system to do that. So that's a big thing with chronic fatigue. And also, it can go over into things like brain fog and whatnot. And,
Absolutely.
And I see that the products have been a game changer for brain fog, just clarity.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, as you know, one of our products is BCATP and CQ minerals, which target really the mitochondria. So our products have they have the energy to get into the mitochondria, but also get back out and remove the toxic load. Well, the most mitochondria, some people don't know this, you can have up to 1 million mitochondria per cell in some parts of the brain. So when you compare that to the skin that will have like 200 or 300 per cell, if you're affecting the mitochondria, you upregulating that mitochondria, you really feel it in the brain. So those are definitely some products that people feel. Now, some people do detox, as you know. We don't want people jumping into CellCore without a practitioner, because you don't realize how powerful they are until you start seeing some things happen. Then you blame the product and you don't understand. You're just not ready for that particular product, or let's, maybe start slower. Slow and low is what we like to say sometimes.
And, really making it individualized.
Yeah.
Because there's, I love that CellCore has different kits and they have little cute names so people can guesstimate what to use them for. But, it really does make a change when you focus on the timing and prepare your body in the right way. And I'll never forget when we met at the coffee shop and you're like, it's when BCATP first came out and you're like, take these, tell me what you feel. And I'm just working on my computer and I'm like, Damon, my eyes can see better. I can everything seemed brighter.
Yeah.
And I was, of course, fucking living in Multican then. I was in Multican then. But it really did help.
Yeah.
It was something that I drastically noticed.
Yeah. A funny story about that is I was at a convention and we had it actually in bags, like just the powder of the BCATP. And my boss, was telling me, he's like, hey, we brought some BCATP so you can sample it and stuff. I don't remember if we were giving it out, but I was like, I was doing scoops and I didn't know how much to take, right? So I'm like, all over it. And people probably thought I was on drugs. And this guy finally goes, I want what you're on. And I'm like, it's this.
You're like, it's this white powder.
So funny story, but I was like, oh, I really do feel like incredible. Like I've never felt this good, but I was probably on 10 to 12 capsules worth, which the normal dose is 4. Another story we have along the BCATP lines is we actually did, if you've heard of Brain Tap, the company. So they do brain scans, and now they do biological age. So the founder of Brain Tap, the doctor that owns it, this was about 3 years ago at HealCon when BCATP first came out, and might have been the one I was testing it at, right? So we're like, hey, you do a brain scan, can we do a before and after? So my boss, like, I didn't take any BCATP today, the last day of the convention, so they went and scanned his brain before and after at like 5 o'clock at night, and you can see the brain just spikes, like everything, all the brain waves just spiked. And you're like, wow, just from a supplement. And he's like, the founder was like, I've never seen this before. This isn't not usual. I never see supplements affect the brain like this. He goes, I wasn't expecting that.
I mean, they can't get in there, most supplements.
Exactly. So he went on, I saw him at another convention last year in Wisconsin. I was helping out there and he goes, let me test your biological age. And I was like, I'm hesitant always to think, I don't buy into all the snake oil stuff. I feel like there are some things out there, there's some great modalities and different things. But I was like, okay, why not? Like, so he tests my biological age and he's like, oh my gosh, you're at an A+, like 18 years younger than your age. He's like, that's unheard of. He goes,
it's unheard of.
Because I've definitely seen that with CellCore. So I was like, yeah, this guy's just shining me on. I'm thinking, he's a nice guy. Maybe he just likes our products and saying that. So I started talking to other practitioners that were there that had their biological age tested. Now this is it was a chiropractic convention. So, the chiropractors, health conscious chiropractors, most of them you would think pretty healthy, and they're like, oh yeah, I was 4 years over my age, I was 1 year under my age, or I was like, wow, okay, maybe there is something to this.
Absolutely.
So that kind of blew my mind, and I'm like, no wonder I feel so good, because once you get that toxic load off and your organs are finally functioning normally, like they were meant to when you were born, right?
Yes.
It's just it's amazing what can happen when you get your body functioning correctly.
Yeah. And get the toxins out that
Yes.
are just influencing everything. And, I just squealed when I was talking about my mold story. So, I have not seen products work better for mold detox before. And I honestly think that the reason why I didn't know that I was living in mold so many times is because mold is stealthy and I didn't see it, but also because I was on CellCore products the whole time.
Yeah.
Just taking care of myself. And yes, I was doing things like sweating and exercising, and I drink clean water, and I eat organic food. Like, I do everything that I preach, I practice. However, I was taking carboxy every day because I was detoxing from my last mold house. I was taking BCATP. I was taking TUDCA. I was, alternating binders. I was taking drainage activator when it came out. Like, I was doing a little of this, a little of that. And I'm one of those people that I just follow my intuition. So sometimes I'm like, let me just scroll and see what I feel like I need. And I really think that that's why I had a brain that whole time, and why I didn't get sick when I was living in mold. It is, so many people reach out to me being like, is this good for mold? Is that good for mold? Because I do a lot with mold illness, and I share a lot about my own story online and just different symptoms that I see. But there's really nothing that I recommend in the way that I recommend CellCore, because it really does. It's life-changing.
Yeah, and mold is everywhere. I'm sure you see that. Most people have no idea that they're exposed to mold.
No.
None. Like,
No.
I see that a lot, and I'm like, oh wow, there's probably mold in my house now, right? Like,
we'll get Chris to come look, the guy from the last episode. He's amazing. And yes, he will find it and he will clean it up, because, I want to always empower my listeners that there's solutions, because when I first started this health journey, it was honestly overwhelming for me, just learning about the toxins in the food and the water and the environment, and then mold and this and that and trauma. Like, it's all a lot. But I think that what I always want to leave the listeners with is just this deep understanding that every problem has a solution. And something that I love about CellCore is that if you work with someone one-on-one, you will feel those changes.
Absolutely.
You do. And you feel not stuck.
And you don't need to be overwhelmed. There are solutions out there, right? So that's the beauty of it. It's like, that's what I tell like my friends and family. I'm like, there are solutions. You don't have to be stuck where you're at.
Yes.
Because that's where the depression sets in, right?
Yes.
And then you're like, it's kind of a snowball effect. You get stuck in your own, I don't want to say self-pity, because you can't help it. I mean, you're full of toxins. You don't know what you don't know, right? So getting help is a lot easier today than you think it is. If you know the right people, which you're one of them. Like, absolutely. Send people to you all the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah. And along those lines, we have a new product called ME Support. Now, it stands for mental and emotional. And I see the name, I'm like, well, I don't need this. Like, who needs only certain
Who needs that?
Those people that are, are really like down, need it, or, that's kind of where your brain goes. But what we're seeing clinically is a lot of people that feel good on the outside, they still have their body still in what's called cell danger response, or, fight or flight is the easy way to put it, right? So your body can't be repairing itself and fighting or fleeing, one of the two, right? So this kind of allows, and it can be at the cellular level, so a certain organ. So when you take the ME support, it kind of calms the system, calms the body, and we're seeing people get results faster just by using this little tincture regardless. And one of the things that we've seen clinically a lot is like people with frozen shoulder, or like a knee that's really bad, and they can literally take that and all of a sudden they're able to move, because they've been on CellCore. So it's not a toxin limiting it, it's the body saying, no, we're not going up because it's going to hurt us.
Wow.
So you have to try that sometimes.
I just thought of a patient, so I appreciate you sharing that, because I'll actually never forget when I was in the clinic in medical school, and we had this precious older woman come in, and she had frozen shoulder. And in the literature, there's no cause of frozen shoulder. And if anyone doesn't know what it is, it's truly where you feel like your shoulder is frozen and it's not moving well. And sometimes they say it's because low thyroid, or it can be from this or from that, but then you correct the hormones, it's still not moving. But then something like physical touch helps, right? And like physical movement helps, and it's not because it's breaking up scar tissue. There's nothing structurally wrong. You look under, there's literally nothing wrong. It's because of that emotional response and because of that stress and the trauma. So I love that you said that, because I think that a lot of people don't recognize that you have to feel safe to heal.
Yes.
And it does go down to the cellular level. Our body hears everything that we say.
Yeah.
So even if, a doctor's saying you're getting better, these numbers are getting better, still the self-destruction, we all do it. We all have it on some level. So that's amazing. And I definitely cannot wait to experiment with that in my patients, because I know that's going to be game changing.
Yeah, I think you'll really like it. And we always say a little more often is better than a lot. Like once a day, we try to avoid that. But here's the thing. You can be like, I'm feeling a little stressed. Like I'm at work. I want to tear my coworker's head off.
Yeah.
Maybe take a few drops of it.
Sure.
But you can
Being a New Yorker, I know what that feels like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you can put like a bunch of drops in water and drink that throughout the day.
Yeah.
You can do it topically behind your ears or on the crown of your head. Works great for animals, calm them down as well.
Yes.
I have a puppy, as you know.
Yes,
so
a
put it
very
behind his ear.
well-behaved puppy.
Yeah, he's we were just talking about this. I didn't know I was in the cult, but now apparently I'm in the golden retriever cult, because it's my first golden retriever. I've had German shepherds before then. Yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, the way I'm talking about my dog, I'm one of those cultish golden retriever people.
I'm in a puggle cult. It's fine. I get it.
You know what they say? They say everyone believes that their dog is the best dog in the world, and everyone is right.
Of course we are. They're the babies. And that's why they get CellCore too.
Exactly.
And products. Well, Damon, you're truly one of those people that I could talk to forever and ever, and which is why I love hanging out with you and talking to you, because you're so easy to talk to.
Yeah, you are as well. Of course.
Thank
That's
you.
why you have a popular podcast.
I mean, I like to talk. The people like to listen. Someone told me that they listen to this before they go to sleep, and I'm like, what?
Why?
Why? I know. I was literally fucking shocked. I hope she listens to this and laughs.
Yeah.
But I was honored, but I was also like,
that's awesome.
I soothe you? Like sometimes, like, it's so funny. My producer's laughing. It's so funny because I can't believe it. I'm so loud and hilarious and just fucking out there. So I appreciate you loving me and being open to being on this podcast again. And thank you all for listening and learning. Thank you for letting me lull you to sleep and educate you. If you
That's
are
a good way to end this, right?
Good night. No, just kidding. But if you are looking for, products that can help you really transform your health, I promise you that I don't say anything on this podcast that I don't believe in. And some of the things that I say are crazy, but I don't think that anything that we said today on this podcast is crazy. And I fully back every CellCore product for both myself, my family, my friends, my patients. So if you are interested in working with the CellCore practitioner, reach out.
Please reach out.
Happy to help. Yeah. I don't have much space on my schedule at the moment, but I will send you to someone that can help you. Thanks for being here. Good night. Sweet dreams.